Is earning a military retirement worth it in the end? Is it worth 20 years of your life? Let's talk about it. And if you're a military retiree, make sure you're putting your 2 cents into the comments section because I would love to hear from you. Because I'm not a retiree. I served for 12 years and I made the decision to get out. Although I didn't retire, I did serve as a United States Marine Corps recruiter and I certainly sold the dream. So I'm going to give my opinion right here, but I'm looking forward to hearing your guys' opinion as well. Now, I made a post over on TikTok kind of talking about the benefits of the military, and a commenter on TikTok decided to have this to say, which sparked this entire conversation. They said, quote, "Retired at 38 sounds like a flex until you talk to the guys whose bodies are wrecked by 40. Nobody puts chronic pain, blown knees, back surgeries, and disabilities ratings in the recruitment highlight reel. I've seen friends come back not the same. Lifetime healthcare isn't a bonus, it's often compensation. Respect to those who serve, always. But if we're going to sell them the dream, tell them the whole story, not just the early retirement headline." That's what we're getting into today, because when I speak on all things military, I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. There's certainly benefits to serving for 20 years. There's certainly benefits of her serving for just 4 years. But there's also some negatives that go along with this. So here's some things to consider based off of that comment. You can retire at 38 years old if you enlist at 18 years old. There's 0 qualifications that are required. All you have to be able to do is pass the physical when you go to the Military Entrance Processing Station, MEPS, and you also need to be able to pass the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude and Battery Test. Pass those 2 things and you're in. So right off the bat, I would say that that's a plus, because what other job in the civilian sector are you going to be able to jump right into with no experience, no qualifications whatsoever? That's a plus in my book, because the only things that you will be able to jump into will be blue collar jobs. Blue collar jobs. You won't be able to jump into white collar jobs, because a white collar job is going to require you to have to either have some experience, which you don't because you just jumped out of high school, or some education, which you don't because they're talking about college level education. If you want to do that, you're also not going to be able to get into that job field right at 18 because it takes time to go to college. Also, you're probably going to be in some forms of debt because college takes money. So let's go ahead and scratch white collar jobs off the table, because we're talking about something you can get into right out of high school. Now, my parents are very blue collar. My dad worked in a factory all his life. All of his life. So he worked his ass off for 30 years. And I would be lying to you if I sat here and told you that my job as a United States Marine, mind you, I was administration and a recruiter, but I'd be lying to you if I told you that as a United States Marine admin, that I worked harder day in and day out than he had to work physically every single day. Like as a Marine, yeah, I would spike up on my physical activity and then it'd come back down. There's certainly times I'd have to spike back up. But meanwhile, while I'm spiking up and coming down, my dad is like right here at a steady level. So I could be up here higher than him and drop down lower than him as he's just grinding it out for 30 years straight to earn his retirement. There is no retiring at 38 if you're working a civilian blue collar job. And from my own experience, I would argue that working that civilian blue collar job, your body's going to be just as messed up from doing that for 30 years as an active duty service member's body would be after doing their job for 20 years. Very circumstantial, of course, because you could roll into jobs that are like combat or combat support, whereas I was just administration. So I'm certainly not talking for everyone. I'm just saying in most scenarios, I do believe that to be the case, my opinion. So let's talk about the actual retirement. We're going to talk some numbers right here. Let's just assume that you're going to serve for 20 years and you make it to the rank of E7, which is very generous because I only served for 12 years, but everything in my being tells me that I would have at least made it to the rank of E8. So we're going to be generous here and say that you retired as an E7 after 20 years of service. Now, depending on the bracket that you fall into, whether it's the legacy retirement system or the blended retirement system, we're going to average some numbers here and just assume that you're making about $2,500 every single month as your retirement pension for serving in the military. Now, I will say, if you've never done any research on retirement, that number seems a little bit low to me, but nonetheless, $2,500 for the rest of your life. You don't have to do anything else because you've already served for those 20 years to earn that paycheck. That's also not even factoring in any of the thrift savings plan or the TSP that you've been contributing into for those entire 20 years. If you don't know what a thrift savings plan is, it's essentially the military's version of a 401k. Next, let's get a little bit controversial here, because it was even mentioned in that comment, VA disability compensation. We're not just going to scroll right on past that as if some people don't specifically enlist because they know VA disability compensation is a benefit of enlisting into the military. People hate to hear it, but the government has said that if you enlist into the military, anything that happens to you, be it physical or mental, that the government will compensate you for those things. So if you came into the military and you're a stud all the way up here, and by the time you get out of the military, you're down here mentally or physically, the government is going to give you a compensation to offset that. That's in your contract. And depending on what it is that you claimed, how many different things you claimed, and for how long you served, that number can range from a few $100s a month to a few $1,000s a month, $2,000, $3,000, up to $4,000, even plus if you have dependents and different things along those lines. And if you serve for 20 years, let's just go ahead and assume that you're going to be closer to that $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 every single month. So yes, your body may be wrecked after serving in the military for 20 years, but I would argue that your body is going to be equally as wrecked if you worked in a blue collar job for 30 plus years in order to earn that retirement. Now, I'm not trying to glorify this fact that your body is going to be destroyed after working for 20 to 30 years. I'm just saying that the government has said that they will compensate you for that. Whereas if you needed to get compensated in the civilian sector for your body getting destroyed, you're going to have to jump through a whole lot of legal hurdles in order to get whatever company it is that you worked for all those years to compensate you. So let's break down the numbers real quick. We're already talking about $2,500 that you're going to receive for your military retirement pension. Then let's add in roughly $3,500 that you're going to receive for your VA disability compensation. Yep, I get it. Your body's wrecked, but you are being compensated $3,500. Now let's add in the thrift savings plan, or the TSP, that you've been contributing to for the last 20 years. There's an additional $1,000 right there. And lastly, we're not going to forget about the most common play that most service members do, because you earn a benefit called the VA home loan. Oftentimes, service members, every time they get stationed somewhere, they purchase a home, they renovate the home while they're living there, and when they leave, they keep the home, but they start renting it out. For 20 years, you're probably going to be owning somewhere between 4 to 5 houses, and again, that's being generous. So let's just assume that that's another $1,000 a month of income that you're going to be bringing in by the time that you retire. Sitting at $8,000 a month that you are going to start receiving by the time you've served for 20 years and you decide to retire. So now let's look at the whole picture. We're sitting at 38 years old, bringing in $8,000 a month, and you're still young enough and hopefully serviceable enough to be able to go out and start a whole nother career, because you're only 38 years old. The person who commented on my post made it seem like recruiters don't discuss these things with people as they're going out and they're selling the military. I had this in my everyday toolbox. I brought it up in every single interview that I conducted when I was a military recruiter. I built the vision so that the applicant could see it, and then I sold the vision. So it's really up to you, the applicant, to decide is, hey, trading in all of these things, these factors, some good, some bad, some great things like the VA home loan, some bad things like your back and your knees and maybe even your mind have gotten destroyed over these last 20 years. But if I can hold out for these 20 years, I'm going to be able to receive all of these benefits, and I'm still only 38 years old. I don't know. There's certainly a trade-off, and it's up to you to decide, is that trade-off worth it or not? I would argue that it is. It's not for everyone. But let's not make it seem like recruiters don't talk about these things, because this is a great selling point. Now, if somebody has the ability to jump straight into a white-collar job, then yeah, you have some heavy leverage on staying a civilian. But if it's a matter of like your only option is to jump straight into blue-collar work, the military is very comparable to that. Again, with all of that being said, I don't even receive a retirement because I personally made the decision to get out at 12 years. But I would love to hear what other veterans have to say, what other military members who receive a retirement pension have to say, and even the people sitting on the sideline who haven't even served into the military. What do you guys have to say? Drop them down there into the comment section. If you guys like content like this, please consider subscribing to my page, because here on the After Actions, this is what we talk about. All the ins and the outs of the military, everything that has to do with the enlistment process, deployments, benefits, entitlements, different things along those lines. If you guys got any questions, drop them over there in the comment section. And until next time.